I ran out of my house with only my valuables and waited for a taxi on a busy street. I looked around nervously, but I didn't know what I was running from. I didn't understand how I had ended up being forced to run away instead of enjoying my honeymoon, which I had been looking forward to. However, I believed in my husband's words, who had told me to run away. So I was trying to escape from this town. I am Marin, a 30-year-old business consultant. Although I had been feeling like a newcomer for a long time, I had become the one responsible for the branch and was spending busy days. I have a fiancé named Rob, and we are planning to get married next month. Rob is a reliable co-worker from my company. He is a perfect guy who is trusted by his superiors and subordinates, and he also does housework perfectly. I think he is a wonderful man who is beyond compare as a marriage partner, except for one thing. We visited his parents' house for a weekend, and when we opened the door, two women were relaxing and having tea in the living room. "Welcome home, Rob."
"Hi, Rob. Good to see you."
They ignored me completely and welcomed my husband with a sparkling smile. Here we go again. Why is Alyssa here too? Well, Alyssa is like a daughter to me, you know. Right?
Right. When Rob and I get married, I'll become your daughter for real.
Whoa, that sounds nice. My husband sighs heavily. I was already filled with the desire to leave immediately. Alyssa is Rob's childhood friend and neighbor. With her big bright eyes, slender figure, and a talent for being spoiled, she is the type of woman who men can't resist. For some reason, she has become fixated on Rob, especially since he told his parents that we were getting married. Alyssa sends him endless messages, constantly asking him to meet up. Her persistence made me anxious, so I asked Rob about it. "Babe, aren't you being pursued by a cute childhood friend like her and just not interested?" When I asked my husband, he looked really disgusted. "Well, she pretty much hooked up with everyone on the basketball team in high school. And apparently, she only dated guys who already had girlfriends or wives in college. I mean, marrying a woman like her is just too scary, right?" I breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that Rob wouldn't be swayed by Alyssa, but my mother-in-law was on Alyssa's side. She tried to make me feel unwelcomed by showing off her close relationship with Alyssa. It seemed that my mother-in-law didn't know about Alyssa's recklessness. She was planning to have Alyssa as her daughter-in-law because she thought Alyssa, who appeared innocent and obedient, would be easy to handle. Because of these two women, I had a terrible wedding experience. Alyssa showed up at the reception venue in a pure white dress, even though she wasn't invited, and attracted everyone's attention. What's worse, she was sitting in the family section throughout the wedding ceremony with my mother-in-law. I was worried about Alyssa while she was enjoying herself with my mother-in-law. My husband scolded them while trying to control his anger. "Alyssa, you weren't invited. And why are you wearing a white dress and sitting in the family section? And what are you doing, Mom?"
"But it's my beloved childhood friend's wedding. I have to celebrate it. And white is my personal color. I look good in it, don't I?"
Yeah. The dress suits Alyssa's fair skin very well. She looks the most beautiful in this venue, my mother-in-law replied. My husband bowed his head in despair. When I looked at my father-in-law, he was also bowing his head and apologizing with his hands together. He was a decent person, but he was weak-willed, so he must have been pushed around by my mother-in-law. I had been preparing for and looking forward to this wedding for almost a year, so I was about to cry with frustration. But if I cried here, I would be playing into their hands. When I lifted my head and smiled at Alyssa, the corner of her eye twitched.
You are such a good friend, Alyssa. I'm impressed. What do you mean?
Alyssa's mouth twisted.
Oh, well, it's almost time for the first dance, so excuse us.
Saying that, I gave a relaxed smile to the two of them. Alyssa gave me a momentary glare like a demon, but soon she made an innocent smile like an idol and left. I'm sure she was disappointed that I wasn't a weak woman who would cry and make a fuss. Despite what happened, we received heartfelt blessings from everyone, and the wedding ended successfully. I was also able to savor my happiness. After getting married, Rob and I continued to live separately in our current houses for a while. We planned to search for a house in the spring, so we were going back and forth between each other's places until then. We also planned our honeymoon by departing from our own places and meeting at the airport. The destination was Italy, which we had been longing for. 1 month after the wedding, I was excited and thrilled every day thinking about Italy. However, my excitement would be completely ruined by those two. On the day of our honeymoon, my husband called me while I was fidgeting, wondering if I had forgotten anything.
Ciao! What's up, babe? We're supposed to meet at 11, right?
Erin, sorry. Contrarily to my carefree attitude, my husband shouted frantically on the phone. I'm sorry, but we have to cancel our honeymoon. Whatever you do not come to the meeting place.
What?
Listen, do not leave the apartment under any circumstances. No, wait. Leave there right now and go back to your parents' house, please. Wait. What's going on? I'm sorry. I'll explain later. Just please, leave now. And the phone was suddenly disconnected. I stared at the phone in amazement. I felt my joy disappear as I heard my husband's bewildered state, although I didn't know why. Could he have been involved in a crime? Just imagining it sent shivers down my spine. I forced my feet, which were about to shrink in anxiety, to move and decide to go to my parents' house, as my husband had said. Of course, my parents were in a panic since their newlywed daughter, who was supposed to be on her honeymoon, came back looking pale. I think they were even more worried because they had seen the ugly behavior of my mother-in-law at the wedding. I was in trouble because I didn't even know why I was there and wanted to explain the situation. Then, a call came from an unknown number. It was the police. The police officer told me the reason why he called me in a softer voice than I had expected. Residents reported that there were women shouting loudly while knocking the door of your room. So we secured them as they seemed excited. However, this woman is claiming to be your mother. What? My mother? What? Me? I exclaimed, and my mother, who was right next to me because I had to put the call on speakerphone, also shouted in surprise. The police were surprised to hear my mother's voice. I was also momentarily stunned, but I soon realized who the women were. It was my mother-in-law, and probably Alyssa was with her too. I didn't know why they had come to my place on the day of my honeymoon, but my husband had probably panicked because of them. The time for the flight we had reserved had passed, and our honeymoon was ruined because of them. I told the police officer firmly in a strong tone. My mother is next to me. Those people are strangers. Wait, Erin, it's me. It's me. My mother-in-law shouted on the other end of the phone, but the police officer seemed to sense something. Thank you for your cooperation, ma'am. I hung up the phone after hearing these words. Probably my mother-in-law and Alyssa had come to my apartment to harm me. Several hours later, late at night, my husband appeared at my parents' house. As expected, it was my mother-in-law and Alyssa, who had been taken care of by the police. They had planned to detain me when they learned that we were supposed to meet at the airport. Their scenario was like this. Alyssa would run to my husband, who was waiting at the airport, and lie that I had eloped with another man. Then Alyssa would comfort my shocked husband and take him away. Then they would go on a honeymoon trip together. And maybe Alyssa would deepen her love with him instead of me. It was such a ridiculous plan, and I couldn't help but be amazed by their shallowness. But their plan wasn't just that. After detaining me, I was supposed to be taken to a man picked by my mother-in-law. He was a 45-year-old unemployed man who was her brother. They had even put Alyssa's cousin on standby in a car for this purpose, which sent shivers down my spine. The reason why my husband knew about their terrible plan was thanks to my father-in-law. He happened to encounter my mother-in-law and Alyssa discussing their plan on the day of our honeymoon and contacted my husband. My husband and father-in-law went to the police to handle everything and finally came to my parents' house. My husband apologized for canceling our honeymoon and for his part in handling everything. He had done everything he could, but he looked exhausted after just one day. I was sad and frustrated, but I couldn't blame him. However, I would never forgive my mother-in-law and Alyssa. From that day on, I switched from the defensive to offensive. First, I demanded that they pay for the cost of repairing the apartment door that they had broken, as well as compensation to the management company for the inconvenience caused. I even demanded that they pay for the cancellation fee of the honeymoon trip, which cost almost $15,000 in total. Of course, the two of them resisted.
It's not my fault. It's Rob's fault for not being honest, even though he likes me.
I just want your happiness, Rob. All right, I understand.
Oh, yeah? Rob, I know you have feelings for me.
I mean, if you are not willing to pay, then we'll have to take this to court.
Huh? Court?
If this goes to court, I'll have to pursue the fact that you tried to kidnap my wife too. And then the cost and the compensation will go up. When my husband mentioned the word court, my mother-in-law began to tremble and Alyssa burst into tears.
Rob, will you forgive me? Right? I'm important to you, right?
No, and no. I will never forgive you. Alyssa let out a small scream as my husband glared at her with cold eyes.
How can you do this to me? But you love me too, don't you, Rob?
How can I love a woman who'd screen multiple men at once, including married men? My mother-in-law looked shocked when she heard this. And I also supported my husband. You said you liked Rob, but wasn't it only after I got engaged to him? I bet you suddenly became interested in him as soon as he belongs to someone else. Wait, what? You, Alyssa. Alyssa's eyes swim with agitation, and she points to my mother-in-law and yelled, "Rob, your mother was trying to use me because she didn't like Erin." "Alyssa, are you really trying to put the blame on me?" "Rob, she's lying. I was trying to stop her, you know." As the two of them started arguing and almost getting into a fight, Alyssa's parents and my father-in-law intervened and settled the matter. They decided to split the costs equally. Alyssa's parents, who had not noticed their daughter's outburst, apologizing profusely. We also made a written agreement that if Alyssa and her mother approached us again, there would be penalties. The plan had failed, but it was too malicious for us to forgive them. 3 years later, we were living peacefully with our son when a man visited us. He introduced himself as Alyssa's fiancé, dressed in a smart, expensive suit. When he went to Alyssa's family home to greet her parents, he happened to meet one of her classmates. And the classmates told him about Alyssa once being obsessed with my husband. We hadn't heard her name in a while and were taken aback. That classmate was probably someone who attended our wedding and witnessed Alyssa's misconduct. "I heard that Alyssa was planning to steal you away or something like that. I thought it was just a joke, but I noticed that Alyssa looked pale and shaken. So I did some investigation. You and Alyssa are childhood friends. You're not with her, right?" "Of course not. We've never even dated." Rob's statement put Alyssa's fiancé at ease. Rob continued, "However, there's a possibility that she's dating someone other than me." "Huh?" "The Alyssa I know seems to be going on dates with different men every day. She even showed up at our wedding in a white dress and confidently sat in the groom's family section without being invited." That's... If you are going to investigate, I think you should widen the score beyond just me." Yes. Thank you for your time. Excuse me." Then Alyssa's fiancé replied in a barely audible voice and left our home unsteadily. It seems that Alyssa's fiancé was the son of a well-known company president and financially stable. But his family was furious when they found out about Alyssa's deception. Not only had she been seeing other men while engaged to him, but there were several of them, and he had broken off the engagement and was also demanding compensation for damages. On top of being abandoned by her fiancé, she was also in debt. It's time for her to realize that a life of deceiving others is coming to an end. I don't really care about her, but it's so satisfying to see her get what she deserves. On the other hand, it seems that my mother-in-law and Alyssa engage in catfights every time they see each other, which is caused by the fact that they live nearby. I feel sorry for the neighbors who are forced to witness their ugly fights. In addition to that, my mother-in-law seems to be restless every day because she can't even meet her first grandchild, while my father-in-law happily comes over to our house with baby supplies. She watches him leave while biting her nails. Although she had sent baby clothes and toys to us a few times, I returned them without even looking inside. Amidst not being able to see her grandson or son, she must be grateful for the kind presence of her husband. As for my own family, this year, when my son turns 4 years old, we are planning to make up for our cancelled honeymoon. We are going to Italy. The unpleasant memories of the day are fading day by day, but I want to make unforgettable sparkling memories that will last a lifetime this time. Ciao!
Ciao. Ciao.
You're good. Alright, next is buongiorno.
Buongiorno.
I smile as I watch my beloved son and husband practice Italian in the living room. They are my happiness, and I will cherish them as long as I live.